Ukraine just attacked Russian territory, a startling development in the Ukraine-Russia confrontation. However, this is expected. Ukraine has been discreetly preparing for this move for months with strategic attacks deep inside Russia. Let's examine Ukraine's latest tactical moves and see if they'll change the fight. Please subscribe to receive our newest news. The master plan, Ukraine versus Russia. Each blow was part of a grand strategy, not random. Ukraine probed Russia's defenses and revealed Putin's vulnerabilities with each attack. These strikes highlighted Russia's weaknesses, and now the world watches in awe as Ukraine's true strategy is revealed. A carefully planned attack on Russia's weakest points. Russian special forces, the Little Green Men, occupied Crimea and annexed it in 2014 at Putin's request, according to Ukrainians. Russian armed and Russian-backed separatists, aided by the Russian army and special forces, also controlled areas of eastern Ukraine's Donetsk and Donbas provinces. Long-lasting, low-intensity war began. The Russian army began a full-scale conventional war on Ukraine in February 2022, seeking to capture Kyiv, the capital, and decapitate the government. With thousands of wounded armored vehicles and combat planes, the Russian army was halted after initial advances. The Russian military's inability to conduct basic combat tactics, let alone combined arms operations, was shown. Years of underinvestment and corruption left the Russian army empty. Vladimir Putin's three-day special military operation to conquer Kyiv and overthrow the democratically elected Ukrainian government is now in its third year. Russian advance slowed to a crawl and was forced back in several locations before stopping. Military artillery has converted forests into shattered wastelands reminiscent of Western France during WW1. Tanks and mechanized infantry fight. Russian troops tentatively cross no man's land to be attacked by small drones with grenades and RPGs. War is not won by stalemate. Russia's size, industry capacity, and manpower offset its substantial losses. Russia may benefit from a lengthy fight despite spending thousands of soldiers on difficult and useless missions. Russian troops are slowly rebuilding, while the Ukrainian army, with fewer resources and manpower, is suffering. In a few weeks, Russia may launch a spring attack. Ukraine, time running out? Ukraine faces tremendous challenges as it considers a fresh Russian strike. Artillery shells, personnel, and international support are running out. American M1 Abrams tanks, Bradley infantry fighting vehicles, and other Western equipment have been gratefully accepted by Ukraine, but the numbers are still low. The fight is now 2 years old, but crucial systems like the F-16 have not entered battle space. Ukraine. Time running out? After the Ukrainian military acquired Western tanks, artillery, and armored fighting vehicles last year, a counteroffensive was expected. But these hopes failed. Artillery missiles, battlefield drones, trenches, and mines have made the battlefield brutal for all sides. Ukrainian mobile forces suffered nearly as much as Russians. No breakthrough to the shore occurred, and the front lines remained stagnant. Some hope remains. As they seek new tactics to combat the enemy, the Ukrainian government and military focus on creativity and initiative to optimize resources. We'll highlight 2 areas the Ukrainians are seeking to exploit to hamper the Russians' planning and warfighting. Ukraine's long-range drones. Discuss Ukrainian long-range drones and indirect warfare. Since air power arrived in the First World War, military commanders have sought means to reach enemy territory to prevent hostile personnel, equipment, and supplies from reaching the battlefield. Better to stop weapons and render tanks ineffective before they reach the fighting zone than to waste men and equipment destroying them. The Second World War has good instances. German submarines attempted to intercept and sink hundreds of tons of American and Canadian troops, tanks, aircraft, ammunition, and food supplies for Britain and the war effort in Europe during the Battle of the Atlantic. The war was about supplies and logistics. Any airplane the Germans could sink in an Allied merchant ship's hold meant fewer bombs on Hitler's Reich. Winston Churchill said, "The only thing that ever really frightened me during the war was the U-boat peril." Between 1942 and 1944, the American Strategic Bombing Force raided Romanian Ploiești oil refineries to cut fuel deliveries to Germany's industry, aircraft, and panzer forces. After D-Day, Allied planes flew behind German lines, crashing into trains, railways, supply dumps, and communication facilities. The stalled battlefield in Ukraine may allow Ukraine to apply some of these historical lessons. Battlefield drones are old. Early in the century, the U.S. military used surveillance and strike drones, or UAVs, in Iraq and Afghanistan. Since then, drones have grown from small, lightweight drones that can drop a grenade into a trench to larger systems that can fly hundreds of kilometers and carry hefty payloads. Russia's conventional attack on Ukraine in February 2022 involved both commercial and military drones, some from the Soviet era. Turkish TB2 Bayraktar is a popular modern military drone with the Ukrainian military. Ukraine's only purpose-built armed UAV had a 300-kilometer range. The Bayraktar had shown its worth in Syria and Azerbaijan. It carries 4 laser-guided guns and can fly for 27 hours. Due to its capacity to demolish Russian armor, the Bayraktar was so popular that a Ukrainian pop song was composed about it, and children and pets were named after it. War's harsh conditions have inspired Ukrainian drone designers to improve this first capability. Most of their early design and development was done in a basement or workshop by amateurs. They often used commercial quadcopters from hobby shops, online stores, or Chinese off-the-shelf systems. Ukrainian military planners have increasingly relied on drone warfare to strike at Russian infrastructure and weaken its war effort, particularly as Russian missiles and bombs continue to target Ukrainian cities. Limited by political and humanitarian constraints, Ukraine has turned to developing and deploying long-range drones, which offer strategic capabilities without relying on Western weaponry that many nations hesitate to provide for attacks inside Russia. Major General Vadim Skibitsky emphasized in early 2024 that targeting Russian infrastructure, command centers, and supply chains was vital, as Ukraine's artillery and aircraft shortages made traditional battlefield victories challenging. Long-range drone strikes have expanded in scope and distance, targeting oil refineries, military air bases, and other strategic assets deep within Russian territory. For example, drones suspected of being Ukrainian attacked the Novoshikinsk oil plant 150 kilometers from the front line and military air bases in Kursk, Saratov, and Ryazan, the latter nearly 700 kilometers from Ukraine. Drone strikes have also carried significant symbolic and psychological weight. A May 2023 attack on the Kremlin, though denied by Ukraine, underscored Russia's vulnerability and bolstered Ukrainian morale. These operations aim to disrupt Russian military logistics and infrastructure while demonstrating Ukraine's growing capabilities. Increased drone activity has targeted critical infrastructure such as railways, naval bases, and oil refineries, forcing Russia to thin its defenses across vast areas. In 2023, over 190 drone attacks were reported across Russia and Crimea, a trend that has intensified in 2024. As President Zelensky stated, these operations are a natural and fair response to Russian aggression. Beyond military targets, Ukrainian drones have projected influence over iconic structures like the Kerch Bridge, a symbol of the Russian occupation of Crimea. Though not yet struck by drones, Ukrainian officials hint at potential future attacks, keeping Russian defenses stretched thin. As drone capabilities evolve in scale and effectiveness, Ukraine continues to innovate, using minimal resources to disrupt Russia's war machine and reshape the dynamics of modern warfare. Attacks on Russia. How effective? On the final day of voting, CNN reported 36 drone launches by Ukraine, including a long-range attack on April 2, 2024, targeting an oil refinery and drone facility 1,300 kilometers inside Russia. These strikes have exposed weaknesses in Russian air defenses, forcing their redeployment from the front lines to protect critical infrastructure. Despite claims of effectiveness, Russia's air defenses have a history of failure, as exemplified by incidents like Matthias Rust's 1987 flight to Red Square. In April, a Carnegie analysis noted that slow-moving Ukrainian drones could strike targets in daylight with minimal risk, as evidenced by the April 5th attack on Rostov Military Airfield, which destroyed 6 planes. Attacks on Russian oil refineries have escalated, affecting 14% of Russia's refining capacity, according to The Economist, though damaged facilities are often repaired within weeks. These strikes have pressured Russia into banning petrol exports, sourcing fuel from Belarus, and seeking support from Kazakhstan, costly moves that indicate growing concern. Ukraine has also revolutionized naval warfare with maritime drones like the Magura 5. These stealthy, fast-moving drones carrying 320-kilo payloads and capable of 80 km/h over 800 kilometers have inflicted significant damage on Russia's Black Sea fleet. Notable strikes include the October 2022 kamikaze drone attack in Sevastopol harbor, which likely damaged the Admiral Makarov frigate. Ukraine's innovative use of these drones has forced Russia to retreat its navy to Novorossiysk, protecting Ukraine's southern flank and securing grain transport routes. While drones alone cannot replace traditional weapons like tanks and artillery, Ukraine's creative strategies with limited resources are achieving notable military and propaganda successes, challenging Russia's dominance and reshaping modern warfare. With this brave step, Ukraine has garnered global attention. Will this attack end the conflict or merely prolong it? Please share your thoughts on this development. How will Ukraine's move affect the war? Leave comments and like and subscribe to get our latest updates.